All right, we'll go ahead and get started on the Project Game Day post-game show. Rita will join us in a second. Coming up a little bit later on, our friend Steve Johnson, former Orioles pitcher, will check in as well. It has been a miserable day. The Project Game Day post-game show is brought to you by Superbook Sports, AJ Michaels, and HelpMyGamblingProblem.org. Remember, if you or a loved one has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org. As the Orioles wind down, we'll begin today's post-game festivities by discussing what was even more fun. Yeah, fun day all around, as the Ravens were 17-10 losers earlier today in Pittsburgh. Our friend, Super Bowl champion, Femi Ayanbadejo, who I promise is not Kelly Whalen. That's him, I swear. You and I texted briefly after the game, and we were both pretty fired up. I still haven't come up with all the words to describe it. It's indefensible. That was a choke job. That was about as brutal of a loss as you could ever possibly imagine.
Yeah, and I apologize, guys. My girlfriend's Kelly Whalen. She's used my computer before, and for some reason I cannot get rid of her name on my Zoom chat. It's been up there for months now, but it's all good. Yeah, just too many mistakes. I have a list of 9 things here. I think I had 9 items against Indianapolis. You remove any one, and I think the Ravens win. Same thing today. You remove any one, I think the Ravens win the game. They're clearly the better football team, and I'm going to be very, very hard on my team right now because that's what I do. And it doesn't mean I don't love them. It doesn't mean I don't believe in them. But as a former player, as a fan, today was absolutely, and I want to cuss, but I won't, put it whatever cuss word you want in front of what I'm saying right now, unacceptable. First of all, as I said, too many mistakes, mainly self-inflicted, leaving too many points on the field. First, I said special teams has been a problem all year. And guess what? Special teams
miserable.
Cost them a game today. 7 offensive drops. Okay, can't have that. These are NFL players. Zay Flowers was a mess today. I love Zay. He's on my fantasy team. I love him. I think he'll be a Pro Bowler, multiple-time Pro Bowler before it's said and done. I don't know what happened to him today. I don't know if the brights got too bright for him or if the expectations were too high, but he literally tripped in Pittsburgh. 2 drops and a 30-yard trip that could have been a potential catch that could have been at least a 30-yard gain. If he stays on his feet, it's maybe a touchdown. I talked about ball security costing them games. Guess what happened today? Justice Hill again. I don't know how many fumbles Justice Hill's had since he's been a Raven, and guess what? That man is electric. He is a monster on his feet. And once again, I can nuance this. I can give a compliment and give a critique simultaneously. And the truth of the matter is, he needs to take care of the ball, or he needs to sit his ass on the sideline next to me until he figures that out. I don't give a damn how good he is. You can't take care of the ball, you can't play, period. End of story. Coaching decisions today. What were they doing at the end of the second half? Why were you even trotting your offense out there to do whatever Lamar did and then snap the ball on a play that was completely messed up and bumbled? You got to kick that field goal. Points are a premium. I knew that if the Ravens scored more than 17 points today, they would win. I actually think I had the Ravens winning 27-17. They probably left 17 points out there, actually. Number 6, the other coaching decision that racked my brain is, why were you not helping the tackles with more chipping by tight ends and linebackers? You know that the best players on that field for Pittsburgh are their rush players. Why are you not chipping all day? And then when you did chip, they missed the chip. I watched Justice Hill again miss a chip. Okay. And I watch other guys miss chips too. Mark Andrews had a potential touchdown. He dropped it. Bateman dropped a touchdown. Aguilar dropped a deep ball, probably wins the game, maybe a touchdown. Defense showed up today, though. Let me tell you that. Defense showed up. Marlon Humphrey on that island he was on that big play, on that touchdown to George
Pickens.
Pickens. He's on my fantasy team too, but I don't even want to say his name. I dislike him so much right now because he just stuck a dagger in my chest. But the bottom line is that the defense showed up. The defense has showed up all year, and the offense is playing catch up. We know that the offense is I have this rating that I do in my analytics with my analytics team. And it's a 1 to 10 volatility ranking. 10 means you're very volatile. 1 means that you're completely consistent. The Ravens volatility rank is probably like a 7. You just don't know what you're going to get sometimes with that offense. That defense, that volatility rank on that defense is probably a 2. I know they're going to come and show up every weekend. They didn't get the pass rush wasn't great early, but guess what? As the game went on, they made their presence felt, and they did exactly what they needed to do to win a football game. If offense shows up or special teams shows up, they win the football game. So let me stop there for a minute. I feel a little bit better, but it's going to take me a couple of days to flush this. But that's how I'm feeling right now.
Hang on, Rita, do you have an entire list like Femi did prepared? Or do you use...
First of all, let me start with this. I'm very saucy. I'm going to use a lot of cuss words. I've been drinking since 1 o'clock because I knew I was going to be stressed out today. So I hope we're ready for the curse words and I'm sorry, John, in advance. I want to get this off my chest. So Femi pretty much brought up all the points that I think all of us would have liked to have bring up. The problem that I have is that I'm watching social media and I'm seeing people talk about fire John Harbaugh. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that John Harbaugh is absolved from any type of critique. Okay, because at the end of the day, if I don't understand how you and Tyler Lindenbaum didn't have an understanding of just because you thought somebody jumped offside, you felt like that was an indication to snap the ball. I understand that it happens, but it does, right? And so you got to take the 3 points. I don't give a fuck what situation it is. You got to take the 3 points. Point blank, period. Okay, I understand you wanted to draw them off sides, but I at that point, I am more concerned about taking the 3 points as opposed to trying to draw anybody offside because you're on the road. It is Pittsburgh. You have to take the points. So there's that. I have a problem with everybody sitting here complaining about coaching when I'm seeing 7, but I counted 8 drop passes. I'm counting 8 drop passes. Zay Flowers can't keep he can't keep up with his footing because I think that's a touchdown. There's nobody really around him that would have stopped Zay Flowers from that particular Nelson Aguilar, things that we talked about prior to him being signed, because he's been very good up until this point. But him dropping that pass was huge. Mark Andrews dropping a pass in the end zone, turn around Rashad Bateman dropping the pass in the end zone, then Rashad Bateman dropping another pass. These fucking receivers get paid a lot of money to do what is very simple. Catch the fucking football. I'm sorry I'm using a lot of F-bombs, but it is very necessary because at the end of the day, you get paid a lot of money to catch a fucking ball. And I don't understand why Lamar Jackson has put the ball in your hands and you can't catch the ball. Now, I'm not saying that Lamar is absolved from this either because that pick in the end zone was inexcusable. However, I'm willing to excuse Lamar's actions because everything else that he's done today, they should have won that football game. Pittsburgh had no business being in this football game. They're not good enough. They don't have the roster. The Ravens, 2 out of 3 weeks in a row, because 2 weeks ago we saw this exact same outcome in the Colts game, have allowed teams that are lesser than them stick around and win football games. And that's the problem that I have. That's the problem that we've had for quite a while, Glenn and Femi, because we saw this in 2011. We saw this in 2012, where they played down to their competition. The Steelers are not a good football team. They're in the late 20s and everything on offense. Everything.
And
they're
defense
not
too.
that fucking good.
And defense too.
And yet y'all play with y'all food. You play with your food. And you allow them to stick around and win a football game that you should have handedly won, because I counted 3 drops of touchdowns potentially in this football game. And I have a problem with that.
Steve Johnson, you're going to have a heck of an act to follow.
I'm sorry, Steve. I have been drinking since 1 o'clock, y'all. And let me tell you something. Between the Orioles and the Ravens, I've had a long fucking day, and everybody's going to get it today. Everybody's getting it today from me.
I'm starting to worry about what I might say. Steve, I'm gonna come back to you in a minute, and we're gonna get into. I'll even let you chime in on a disastrous day.
And I want to apologize to my mama in advance because I see that she's on this call. I want to apologize to her, but I'm gonna get these F-bombs off because this has been a terrible day in Baltimore sports, and I am not fucking happy about anybody in this fucking town at this moment.
On the Lord's Day too, Rita. All right, let me come back to Femi for a second. Femi, let me pose a couple of things to you. All right, Rita brought up what was described as a miscommunication. who is that on? Is it on Tyler Linderbaum, dude, you can't ever? Or is that during the week, is he perhaps coached up and said, hey, look, by the way, if we do something like this, you're supposed to be watching to see if somebody jumps. And if someone does, then go ahead and snap the ball and try to get that 5 yards. The biggest thing that jumps out at me is almost the entirety of it feels too cute. By the time the play was over, there were 13 seconds left. I don't know. I think it was probably 5, 6, maybe 7 seconds at most that the play took. So in best case scenario, you're talking about getting the penalty and having 20 seconds and one timeout to still try to score a touchdown. And I'm not saying you wouldn't try to do it, but it seems like even the attempt at trying to draw them offsides
is a risk.
Right.
Feels unnecessary risk.
I understand. Why?
I understand it, but Tyler was wrong. And if you get it wrong, guess what happens? You might lose the football game. The risk reward versus that play is not worth it. So I blame everybody. I blame the decision to try. I blame the center, everyone. Lamar could have called the timeout. Was there timeout left? Yeah, there was
one timeout left. Yeah.
So you could have burned the timeout. There was probably 3 or 4 different things you could have done. You did the worst thing that you could have done of the 4 choices. You know what I mean? So I understand what they were trying to do, but if you just play clean football, you win the game on clean football. You don't need to do any of that extra stuff. You know, especially on the road in Pittsburgh. If we were at home, maybe, but why even put yourself in that position where something could go wrong? That's the problem that I have. At the end of the day, I love Coach Harbaugh. He ain't going anywhere. I don't want him going anywhere. All those people talking about getting rid of Coach Harbaugh, the same people that say get rid of Lamar. I'm not listening to any of them. You're going too far now. Okay. If you want to be if you want to critique people and you want to be an analyst, great. But let's not get carried away. Okay. I don't think anybody should be losing their job today. Talk to me at the end of the season. Then we can talk about people's jobs.
Look, by the way, that to me, let's have the most reasonable conversation we can have. It would be absurd to suggest that a team that was 3-2 was going to fire their 15-year head coach over one loss. They're suggesting it on social media. But they're idiots. I mean, it's just we're.
I think it's 16. I think it's 16, Glenn.
16. Thank you, Femi. 16-year head coach.
Yeah.
Over one game.
Who's won you a Super Bowl, who's the winningest coach in NFL history, the Ravens in Ravens history.
Right.
One of the best coaches in NFL history. Come on, you're not getting rid of the coach.
It's utter nonsense.
The players have to make plays at the end of the day.
Thank you.
It's not, look, we can talk all day long about Greg Roman. We can talk about Coach Monken. The players had chances to make plays and they didn't fucking make them, period. They didn't make the plays. The ball was in their hands to make plays, and they didn't make the plays. And when it comes to taking care of your teammate, when it comes time to help your teammate, there's only 2 dudes on that defense in Pittsburgh that have any business making plays: Highsmith and TJ Watt.
That's it.
Both of them ruined the game.
Come on.
And it's because they were not being double teamed enough. And when they were supposed to be double teamed, the double team missed. And let me give Pittsburgh a little credit here. A little credit. They did enough to keep themselves in the game. And the running back, Warren, that dude is a beast.
Hey, I don't even know why we're even talking about
Warren is a beast.
Najee at this point, because Warren is the real deal. He knows how to spin out of tackles. He knows how to move the ball forward. Najee is not that. Najee is a great value Gus Edwards. Let's be real here.
Yeah.
Najee is a great
George
value
Pickens is a future Pro Bowler as well. So they literally have like 4 or 5 guys out there. Minka Fitzpatrick, you know what I'm saying? The 2 rush ends, obviously I already mentioned them.
Yeah, I think Quan Alexander played pretty well today, and I think he's a decent player. But you're right.
These are all NFL players. They're all decent players.
Yep.
But my point is, there's not that many special guys out there.
Correct.
And the guys I named are the special ones.
Correct.
Now, it doesn't mean because you're not special, doesn't mean you're not good. You're in the league. You're 1 in a million. Yep. Every NFL player out there is 1 in a million kids that plays some level of football. So these guys are none of these guys are junk. My point is, though, is that they had no business being in this game. They had no business winning this game.
Let me direct to 2 places, if I could, Femi, and we're going to go this route. Femi can't stay with us the entire time, so I promise we're going to get into the Orioles debacle as well. That will come up here on the.
Do we have to?
Trust me, Reeta. I don't want to either. I assure you. Steve tried to cancel on me already once today.
And I tried to cancel. I should have told you I was too drunk to do this.
Femi, let me go 2 places if I could. The first being Rita brought this up. In the inclination of the average, mouth breathing fan is whenever your football team loses a game, it's the quarterback's fault. It's the head coach's fault. That's the way that it goes. It's easy for all of us to say, look, we think Lamar Jackson played really well today and his receivers let him down. And yet, as Rita brought up, there's the interception at the end. There's the strip sack, which alone, it's easy to say. And I get that, putting on Stanley, but it was referenced. He didn't attempt to step up in the pocket in that moment.
He shouldn't have
either.
to.
Thank you.
He shouldn't have to, Glenn.
Thank you.
Okay.
He shouldn't have to. Your left tackle is getting paid. He was the highest paid left tackle at one point.
Tapping
You can't worry. If you can't count on your left tackle, who's one of the highest paid players in the NFL, but he was the highest paid left tackle when he got his contract signed, to protect your blind side, what are we doing? Then you shouldn't be playing left tackle. And Ronnie Stanley can play. I think, generally speaking, I think Ronnie did all right. It's his first game back. I don't want to get rid of Ronnie either. I think Makari getting hurt was a Falele. I don't know if he's ready. He seems a little too slow for me.
Yeah.
Even when he's getting help, he doesn't look sturdy to me.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So
no, he was rough.
But the bottom line is that Pittsburgh had a bunch of guys missing too. You know what I mean? So I'm not gonna blame injuries on anything. You know that when it comes time to play, you have a job to do, and you know what's required. Either you did the job or you didn't do the job. And the bottom line is that when it counted most, the job didn't get done. When it came down to scheming up and protecting your quarterback with chips and play calls and potential check downs that took you into what I'm saying is this. If you're a running back, which I was in the NFL, one of the things I did really well was third down pass protection. I always took my route to the tackle, chipping on the way out into my route. And these things were talked about in scheme throughout the week, especially when you know you have two monsters at both rush positions, right? That is the only thing you should be thinking about. If you catch a pass, great. But the most important thing is protecting your quarterback. When it counted most, the job did not get done.
So the other place I wanted to go here is that as much as, again, we all would tend to agree that the biggest story of the day is the fact that they couldn't catch the football. And this should have been a wildly different football game because of it.
Yes.
It feels like at some point when things start going the wrong way for this football team, and this is where we piggyback off on Indianapolis, everything starts to go the wrong way. There is a snowball effect that seems like it hits for this team. When they face adversity, it feels like everything just starts to come falling apart. How much of that, which we can't measure, we can't put that on a statistic or anything along those lines, but how much of that falls on the head coach, the quarterback, the leaders of the football team, that we see things like this continue to kind of happen?
Yeah, this is a qualitative assessment about performance, right? And it's also psychological. And I think that there is almost it's like the Ravens tend to get leads, right? And we can think about all the leads they've blown in the last 3 years, whether it was in the fourth quarter or earlier. We can point to numerous games. And I don't know if it is a taking the foot off the gas that has something to do with it. If it's just a breakdown in actual ability to make plays, it's probably a combination of things, penalties, right? Injuries. There's a lot of things that play into that. But you're right, though. At the end of the day, the inability to course correct when things start to go sideways is something that needs to be addressed by the head coach. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And then it needs to go from the head coach and disseminated to the coordinators and then the position coaches. And I know they know this, and I know they've talked about this. There's no doubt about it. Why can't they remedy it? I'm not sure why they can't remedy it, but I'll tell you this. It's not the defense right now. It's special teams and it's the offense. Okay. We sat here last week and I mentioned the special teams. I mentioned ball security, and those same problems continue to pop up over and over again. The problem is that when the bullets start flying, you're so singularly focused on what you're doing in that moment. I wish the Justice would have just put both arms around the ball, but he's trying to get yards. You know what I mean? But he's forgetting that when he stopped and paused and did that little juke, there's dudes coming from behind you. Like, that has to be something ingrained in your head now. Because how many times have I seen Justice Hill fumble a ball from somebody knocking it out from behind? 4 or 5 times in his career now? It's been a lot more than it should happen. I played 11 years. I think I had one fumble that I lost.
It happened in the Texans game in week 1.
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah,
that's correct.
So to answer your question, Glenn, you're right. It's not a quantitative thing that we can find through analytics, but it's something that we need to sit down as a team about and really have a come to Jesus and be like, what is going on, guys? Are we not being aggressive enough in our play calling? Are we not being mindful of all the things that could go wrong and thinking about those things while we're playing? I know that we're focused on catch, run, block, tackle, all that stuff, but you have to be mindful of the potholes and the landmines too. You can't just be thinking about, oh, I'm going to make this big play. Think about what can go wrong, just like you think about what could go right. You got to measure all that. All that has to be on the table. All that has to be open for discussion.
I want to add to that, to what Femi said, and this is really something that we had seen a lot in the John Harbaugh era. If a lot of us remember 2011 when they were 12-4, if you look at the losses that they had, they were opponents that were lesser than them. Remember the Jacksonville Monday night game?
Yep.
That is something that comes to mind, and how poorly Jacksonville was and how the Ravens lost that game. And so my thing is that for whatever reason, the Ravens tend to play down to their competition, because let's be honest, the Steelers rank bottom 25 in every offensive category. I mean, and look, 17 points ain't a lot of points. It is what it is, but there's no reason why that the Ravens are giving up 17 points. They literally just scored 6 points the week before against the Houston Texans. And yes, I understand it's a division rival, but my point is that they're not good offensively. Defensively, yes, I understand they're a little bit better, but you literally beat the number one defense the week before in the Cleveland Browns. This is starting to become mental for the Ravens. I don't know what it is.
I thought that quote from Patrick Queen was kind of telling, right?
Yes, he said he's sick of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's understandable, because it does feel like, and so people will sit here and say, well, the justice fumble or when they didn't go for the field goal is kind of took the momentum away from them. And I don't agree with that. The Steelers never stopped the Ravens. The Steelers never stopped the Ravens. If you watch the football game, they continue to move the ball. The Ravens stopped the Ravens with the drop passes. The Steelers did nothing to defend those passes. It was simply the Ravens just not taking the opportunity and taking that situation and doing something with it. It had nothing to do with the Steelers. This was about the Ravens not taking a situation, just like we saw 2 weeks ago against a lesser opponent, and digging the dagger in. And I don't necessarily think that this was necessarily play calling, because I believe that Lamar had 35 passes as opposed to 24 runs. So it's not that they were necessarily level-headed. Well, they threw the ball more, but I think that people thought that, once again, in certain situations where they thought Lamar should have been using his legs for the first down, maybe potentially where the interception came in the end zone, is where the play calling was.
Let's talk about that play. Yeah,
those play calls in the end zone when Lamar threw the pick. Now that was Lamar's only bad play of the game, really,
yes,
in my opinion. That was so terrible for me. You run that ball 3 times in a row.
Thank you.
That's all you do.
They had so much time on the clock.
All you had to do was run. You could have ran zone read with Lamar. You could have ran QB draw. You could have ran QB power. You could have done anything other than what you did. I would have been fine with. But in general, I think you're right, Rita. The play calling was pretty good today. The players that are supposed to make plays did not make them. That's what happened today.
And that's it.
And so the silver lining here is that we know the Ravens. Once again, they have a high volatility rank. They also have a high quality rank. So they are a quality team and they're a volatile team, which leads to what?
Yeah, a lot of mixed results. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, unpredictability, which is and you know what, Rita, thank you for cussing. It's a fucking problem. Glenn.
Thank you. Come on, get it out. Get it out.
You know what I'm saying? Sorry, Steve.
Steve didn't know that he was signing up for like the Howard Stern show.
Let me tell you something. These Orioles gonna get it too. The Orioles are getting it too. Everybody's getting it today, baby. It's gonna be a cuss fest around here.
The thing that and once again, I do want to talk about the silver lining, because the beauty of this issue is that it's fixable. It's fixable in that building. And I've been there. When we won the Super Bowl in 2000, we went through that stretch where we didn't score a touchdown for like 5 weeks. And I think we were 6-2, and then we were 6-4 at one point, and then we never lost a game. We had like a team meeting. We had a real, and the characters on that team, the Gooses, the Sam Adams, the Ray Lewises, all the guys. I know I'm talking about all defensive guys right now, but don't get it twisted. Trent Dilfer is a great vocal leader. You know what I mean? There's a lot of guys on offense. Jamal's quiet, but he's a great leader. And so, I think that at the end of the day, it's really going to come down to the players, because I think the coaches are putting them in positions to make plays. They're just not making them. My biggest issue, though, still is special teams. The Ravens are known for being a top 3 special teams unit year in and year out.
Yeah, it's pretty
They're giving up
inexcusable.
returns. They're giving up block kicks. I mean, I told you, look, Duvernay, I don't know what's going on, but he still looks like he's tiptoeing out there for me. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't get it. So, you know, this is all fixable.
Also, by the way, the catch that he dropped late, well, you can say there was a ton of traffic around him, and there was, but that's still a ball that he had every opportunity to come down with. That ball's in his hands. Yeah. He has every opportunity to come down with that ball, and I get it. By that point, everything had sort of snowballed, but maybe all it took was one positive momentum play to get them going, and here he has the ball in his hands in the middle of the field.
The NFL is a week-to-week league and a series-to-series league as well. Series to series, like the momentum can switch that fast. And you saw Pittsburgh got it, and they didn't give it back, and they just rolled with it. You know what I mean? So we can do the exact same thing. You know, look, we're still in first place in the division. We're still in first. We're tied for first in Pittsburgh.
Tied with the Steelers.
Yep.
I am here to yes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, and y'all not going to be happy with me, and it's fine. I am here to question the heart of this team because I'm trying to understand. You knew what this was. You knew that this was going to put you up 3-0, and it felt like y'all came out flat. And I don't understand why nobody stepped up and made a play. I have a problem. I'm talking about offense. I'm not talking about defense because defense did what they could do. They did all they could do. Steelers were not that good on offense. I have a problem with this offense. And Lamar apparently said, you know, receivers can't drop balls. And he's 100% right. And somebody has to do a job. We sit here and talk about how Mark Andrews is the top 3 tight end in this league. He didn't come up with a touchdown. I have a problem with that. I have a problem with Rashad Bateman dropping 2 passes. He wants the ball all the time, and yet you cannot come up with the ball. Zay, I'm willing to give a pass because he is a rookie, but at the end of the day, you can't fall the way that you fall, right? I have a problem with that. And Aguilar, what he did today is what I think.
Well, it's the frustrating part, right? He plays well.
That was what he was about, right, Glenn?
Yeah.
Right? But my thing is that you know this is a rivalry game. Who is going to step up and be the guy to win the game? The problem is that it was the quarterback and nobody else got the memo. And I have a problem with that. Y'all were in position to win this game in every single phase, and you did not do it. And now you're tied for first place when really you should be sole possession of first place because you played better than the team that you played today.
Yeah. Let me come back to 2 things quickly because Femi, I don't know when you have to check out on us, and the baseball game. The baseball game is about to end. So let me come back to 2 things quickly if I could. First thing I'd like to come back to is one. I know we talked last week and you were all in on Jonathan Taylor. That's off the board now, obviously, is Jonathan Taylor. And
they knew what they had. See, they signed and the money was right where I said it was going to be. I said a 5-year deal, they did a 3-year deal. But when you look at the average salary, it's exactly what I was saying.
They got the deal done. So now let me come back to something because you said at the beginning that you thought the pass rush got there. But I was going to say on that final drive, when Pittsburgh did put together a touchdown drive, the biggest thing that was missing to me was there was no rush. Kenny Pickett had plenty of time to be comfortable on that drive. And this goes back to what you and I talked about a week ago, was that playing defense in the NFL in 2023, being able to generate some rush and being able to hurt, that's all well and good. But when the game is on the line, the plays have to be made by someone being disruptive, someone being an ass kicker. And of course, we see the value of a TJ Watt, the value of a Highsmith on the other side. And I get that that's a very high bar, particularly with TJ Watt. But that really did jump out at me today as being part of the problem with the Ravens, is that while they are capable of generating some pressure and they can get a rush going, when the chips are all on the table, when everything is on the line and someone's got to go win, someone's got to go kick ass, who is that guy?
Glenn, see, you're cherry picking a little bit here. And let me tell you why you're cherry picking. Because you saw George Pickens run past Marlon for a touchdown. The Ravens were like in zero coverage. They
came all out on that play.
Yeah, but Kenny Pickett got the ball in 1.2 seconds and threw it. No one's getting sacked in 1.2 seconds.
Oh, I agree, but they were moving comfortably before that on that.
No, just hear me out, dude.
All right.
Okay. You cannot leave your defense on the field the way the Ravens left their defense on the field in the second half and think that guys are going to be fresh and get
I agree with that
throughout the game. They were doing exactly what they need. The defense gave up 15 points, and I beg to differ. It was actually less than 15 points if you think about the positions the offense put them in. You know what I mean? They gave up 15 points. If you just want to pick a play and say you didn't get pressure, you can say that every time a big play happens. So just hear me out. My point is, is that the defense did what was required to win the football game, period. Over the course of 60 minutes,
I agree with that.
They did what was required. So to say on a series here, on a series there, you're not going to get a sack every series. You're not going to get a sack every time you need one. My point is that the offense let the team down today, not the defense.
I agree with that assessment in
completely
general. In general, I agree with that assessment. But the same cherry picking, I understand that, but I think it's very specific. Like when you have a team that now knows they've got 4 downs to operate with, and they can use, particularly when they have timeouts, the entirety of the field in which to operate. I don't know how you can ask any defense in order to win that way. And I apologize. Here we go again. You would have thought I would have learned my lesson by now. Of course, it's Taylor Swift that's playing in the background. Of course, she's everywhere. That's Steve's girl. What I'm saying is, in that situation, how else are you supposed to beat that other than to have
you cover
the
guys on, you cover your man, you play defense, you have a safety back, you play cover 2. You know that they're going to throw the football probably, but the problem was, Glenn, is on the touchdown, it was what, 4th and 1 or 3rd and 1?
It was 3rd. It wasn't. It was 3rd and
3rd and 1 or 3rd and 2.
I'll pull it back up. It was
okay.
Actually it was actually 2nd and 9.
Okay, 2nd and 9. Okay,
yeah, so 2nd and 9.
But this is the issue though. The time, the amount of time that was left in the circumstances, the Ravens chose to basically bring everybody into the box because the Ravens they had what, 1 timeout left?
Well, the Steelers were already in field goal range at that
exactly,
point.
right.
So that was the biggest issue.
My point is that the circumstances dictate a certain approach. And if you're talking about the end of the game, you're talking about that last series. My point is that if you let it come to that, you're going to win some of those and you're going to lose some of those. It never should have come to that, is my point.
I agree.
Yeah, no, but you know the answer to the question then.
But I think it's twofold though, Femi. Like I think it can both be true.
At
the fact that Aaron Hicks hit a home run in the 9th inning doesn't mean anything. Yeah, right. Of course, that's the case, right? Like, I can think it can both be true that it's not the reason why the Ravens lost today, but I still think it can be true that you could be in the same situation in a game that matters in December or in January, where your offenses let you down, your defense played your tail off, but you still.
There's no magic potion or magic solution to this. Either you make the play or you don't make the play. And the bottom line is there were times throughout this whole year when the defense has gotten sacks when they needed them, and they got pressure. They got the offense off the field, the offense they're playing against, to get the ball back for our offense. My point is you can only ask so much of a defense. If you just dwindle it down to a series, I hear what you're saying. But no, look, I know what you're going to say, but the
Steelers did the same thing today, though. They asked all of that of their defense, and they got it.
Sometimes you're going to make the plays, and sometimes you're not. You're not going to win every time, Glenn. You're not going to win every time.
I agree. We know they're not going to win every time.
So you know the answer to the question then.
But I think it's unique here because I think on one side, on Pittsburgh today, they asked their defense to do all that, but they trust those guys. They trust that TJ Watt and Highsmith will go make plays when the game is on the line. When somebody has to make a play, difference in winning or losing, they have every ounce of trust that those guys can go do it.
They did it today. They didn't do it last week. They didn't do it against.
Well, they didn't have the opportunity to do it last week. They didn't have a chance to do it last week. They weren't in that position.
Exactly.
That's his point.
That's my point.
I understand that, but they might be in the position again. And when they were in the position today, they made the play. When they were in the position,
Glenn, I got no answer. I got no answer for you, Glenn. I got no answer.
But it's twofold. Wait a second. Wait. You can have two conversations, though. You can know that today's game was lost because you dropped the ball, and yet still know that at some point again this season, the offense might score 40 points, and you still need someone late in the game in order to make a play.
You're always going to need someone to make a play late in a close game, Glenn. You're always going to need that.
So who's it going to be?
Hey, I don't know.
Defensively.
It's going to be different. It's going to be different every game. I don't know. I mean, there is no TJ Watt on that side of the ball.
That's why I'm talking about it.
Because then say that then.
If we take Jonathan on that side of the ball. I agree with that. But if we take Jonathan Taylor,
how many TJ Watts are in existence
I wholeheartedly agree. But a week ago, we talked about the possibility of trading for an edge. We had that conversation.
There was no edge player. Okay, let me ask you this question.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan Taylor is a top 3 back.
I agree on that. Yes.
Is there a top 3 edge player available right now?
I don't think either Brian Burns or Danielle Hunter's top 3, but I think they're both top.
I like Brian Burns a lot.
I think they're both top 5 to 10.
Yeah,
I think they're both in that
top 5.
In that conversation.
I don't know.
I mean, to be fair, I don't think Brian Burns is available. I think that Hunter would be
I
something.
think Hunter's more likely to be
He's
available
more
than
likely
Burns is,
to
but
be
I don't know where I have no idea what they're doing in Carolina. They seem like a money laundering scheme at the moment, so I'm not really sure what their story is.
Yeah, I mean,
But if Brian,
I think that the point I'm trying to make is that no one's going to bat 1,000 off the edge. No one's going to bat 1,000 on every critical play. That's just the reality of it. And it never should have come down to that. You're going to see teams win. I'm just talking now. I'm not. Look, I'm done arguing with you. I'm talking just generally right now. My point is that you can cherry.
I'm arguing with you, Ayanbadejo. I want to fight now.
My point.
The Orioles are going to. They just lost, and the Ravens got their ass kicked. I'm in a fighting mood today.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Glenn, you will lose a fight to me, brother.
Well, that's 100% sure. I've seen you with your shirt off. I know it's a fact that I'd lose a fight to you.
I'm talking about a verbal fight. I'm not talking about a physical one. I'm talking about a debate.
For what it's worth, it's probably true too.
My point is that you can't reduce the game down to a play. You cannot reduce the game down to a series. Now, if the game was played clean, then you can reduce it down to a series. If everybody plays perfectly, then yes, everybody did their job. And now we're in a game where everyone played well. Unfortunately, the NFL, the winners in the NFL, it's probably this is the same in Major League Baseball. It's the same in the NBA. It's the same in the UFC. Whoever makes the least amount of mistakes usually wins. You know what I mean? There's no such thing as perfection. And I'm not saying that you said that. I'm just saying that the reality of it is that if you are in a battle and it's down to the final series of a game, when you go watch that film, you're not going to be like, damn, we should have made that play. You're going to go look at the third quarter.
No, I agree. That's the entirety of the story.
And the first quarter. No, but that's the point I'm trying to make, though, Glenn, is you're very focused on this battle.
No, but I still think they're two separate thoughts. I still think they're two separate thoughts.
Okay, one is contingent on the other. Because if you do your job early, you don't have to worry about it in the fourth quarter. You don't have to worry about it on a single play. That's my point. My point is they're not mutually exclusive. They're completely tethered to each other. That's the part you're missing, my friend.
Today, I think that's true. Today, I think that's true. I think it's totally possible, much like it was against Kansas City on a Sunday night a couple years ago, where the offense came to play and was great, and they still needed one desperate play at the end, and the NFL has stacked the rules against defenses. They needed one guy to step up and be an ass kicker in order to win that game. And I'm afraid that they're going to turn into that a couple of times as the season goes on, where you need someone that you can rely on that moment.
Every NFL team is going to deal with that. Every single team. There's no avoiding that. No, it's not like the Ravens only have that problem. That's a league-wide problem.
Not unique, right?
But no, that's my point, though, Glenn. No. That's my point. Sometimes the defense is going to win it. Sometimes the offense is going to win it. Sometimes special team is going to win it. The defense isn't always going to win it. No, that's not how it works. Everyone shares the load. Everyone shares the burden. And you're making my point for me. The bottom line is that all these things are on a timeline, and each event is tied to the previous event. And if you find events going north or south being bad, north being good, if you find a bunch of events going south that leads you into a position where you're now potentially going to lose the game, you can't get hyper focused. You have to get focused on the operation. You have to get focused on the totality of the game and how the game played out. We are all victims of the moment. We all get caught up in the last play and not the first play. We all get caught up in the fourth quarter and not the first quarter. The last 4 minutes and not the first 4 minutes. My point is that only because of the way we feel at the end, but they're all equally valuable.
I agree with that too. I agree.
Well, you're making my point for me. Then I answered your question.
I want them to catch the balls too. I promise you that. I want them to do that.
I'm not even talking about that now. I'm talking about the fact that we cannot isolate anything down to who's going to make a play right now. We want everybody to make plays, and those plays will be made by different people. And yes, all guys are not built the same. I acknowledge that. Not every player is the same. But my point is the Ravens have plenty of firepower on both sides of the ball to win close games and to win 12 or 13 games this season. They made too many mistakes early in the game
today, no question,
that led to their defense being on the field too long, which led to the defense not making plays.
I agree with that assessment as well. Real quick, because Femi's got to go. What company has the expertise and technology to make your home substantially more energy efficient, comfortable, and even virus-free? Well, that's AJ Michaels Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis at ajmichaels.com. Before we let you go, were you okay with Rashad Bateman not talking to the media after the game? Where do you stand as a player?
I'm not okay with that.
Okay.
No, look, you fucked up today. Go face the music, be a grown-up, and stop fucking pouting and tweeting shit. Go out there and listen to what they have to say. Keep your head up, right? Keep your chin low, keep your head up. You know what I mean? And I think Rashad can be, I think he's got Pro Bowl talent. I still believe in him. But there's been too much he said, she said, and like you're a young player. You haven't even earned anything yet. You gotta lay low, make some plays, and then when you make some plays, you can pump your chest a little bit. You can start talking about how you want to avoid this and avoid that. I may not even agree with it then, but at least make some plays first. Like, be out there consistently, be accountable, be available. And I know some of this stuff is out of his control. Nobody wants to be hurt. Nobody wants to be criticized. Nobody wants to hear people talking shit about them 24/7. I'm empathetic to him. But the bottom line is, don't give them fodder to talk more shit about you. And when
they already doing it. They're already doing it.
And when you avoid the media, guess what you just did? You just made it worse.
Fair. I think that's fair. Femi, I do love you. I need you to know that.
Glenn, the love is mutual.
We're gonna next Sunday, earlier in the day, much earlier in the day, we're gonna get right back at it. All right. That'll be the plan.
For sure.
Femi's my favorite. He's my favorite.
Oh, I know. He brings it. He brings it. He's the best.
So let me just say this. I'm gonna dip out of here. Steve, it was a pleasure. I see Mr. KZ right here. I don't know who that is, but maybe at some point.
Ken Zales, that's our buddy.
Our guy, Ken Zales.
Maybe I'll meet him at some point.
At some point.
But Andrew, I appreciate it. Glenn, I'll see you next week. Rita,
Love you,
as always, I appreciate all that cussing you did too. Thank you.
I gotta bring it.
Thanks, buddy. That's Femi Ayanbadejo, former Ravens running back, fullback, and of course Super Bowl 35 champion. Before we shift to the Orioles, let me go around the table. Steve Johnson, I'm going to come to you. Anything that you'd like to say about the Ravens game today and listening to that conversation we just had? Steve, you there?
Right, yeah, right when you I don't know, right when you said something to me, of course I'm getting like a phone call in my ear. So we'll just go with my AirPods aren't working, but I guess the only thing that I saw was more of there's two games. There's two things that happened in the two losses. They're driving in the Colts game, and they had that long play to Kenyon Drake and fumble. They're moving the ball before that, no problem. Boom, 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 all the way down the field. Fumble happens, nothing after that. Today, somewhat moving the ball, in control of the game, going through long play to Justice Hill, fumble, and then after that, nothing. I just think those two things have happened. Like, that's happened so much to where they let that big play ruin the momentum, and they just don't capture it again. At least for this year, when they don't have that play, or it just seems to be early in the game when they just seem to move the ball really well, and then something happens, and it seems to be in a play that we're actually doing well. It's a long gain, everything's moving, we're going to get into field goal range, and then fumble, and then they have the ball right back. And even when we're still in control, we're up by 10 points, whatever it ends up being, the game just kind of feels like, I don't know, we're not in control anymore, just because of that one play. I just feel like that's happened a lot. I felt it today. It's been, you can just see how the game's going. You're like, I just know exactly how this is going to end.
Well, I have good news, because Ken Zales wants to tell you who he blames for that, and he has been. the wild part is he has to keep the camera up on his face.
Objective, KZ.
We don't want to see that he's not currently wearing pants as he's about to go off.
KZ better be objective, because we know that he is anti-HWO.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, I guess it was all explained because it was a simple miscommunication. So I mean, what else do you want me to say?
I mean, he said go in on Harbaugh, so go ahead and do it, friend.
He said he said he wanted to do the field goal, but they were doing whatever it was. For some reason, the field goal unit didn't just run out onto the field.
But now you're being purposely obtuse. You knew what they were trying to do.
What do you want me? They were trying to draw them off sides or whatever, and Linderbaum, decided to,
snap the ball because he thought he saw somebody jump off sides.
And to be fair, somebody did jump off sides.
Yes.
They did.
I mean, look, it's all been explained. I mean, I don't know. In the moment, it looked like another fumbling coaching decision. but it was a miscommunication, as it always is. I guess all teams have this many miscommunications. I don't follow other teams' media.
Ken's doing a real wacky right here. Just say what you want to say. Stop the code.
Hold on, Glenn. I want to know who he wants to blame here. Do you?
I don't want to blame anybody. I want to blame all the guys.
I
want to blame all the guys that didn't drop the ball. That dropped the ball all game long. Look, people. I saw people on social media, killing Lamar. I'm like, stop. I mean, he threw 2 touchdown passes that were dropped. I mean, he played almost at one point. He was almost perfect if everybody would catch the ball. But we've seen this game over and over again, especially with the Steelers. You just let them stay in the game. You let them stay in the game. Those 3 points in the end were just critical. I mean, at the moment, I was upset and I blamed Harbaugh.
By the way, here's the funny part, right?
I'm good. I love your truth.
Well, Ken's kind of pussyfooting around it. I said it earlier.
Really not.
You are. I'm not letting them off the hook for that. I'm not giving them a pass on that situation.
Well, I mean,
that to me, the bigger problem is the fact that there wasn't enough time left to be screwing around and trying to draw them off sides. There wasn't enough time left in the half that there was any value to it. The risk reward, if we did the math equation, there wasn't enough of a reward. If there's still 45 seconds left, let's talk about it. There's 20 seconds left. It's not worth it. The benefit isn't you're assuredly scoring a touchdown or you're in great shape.
Wait, how many timeouts was left?
1 timeout at that point.
Yeah, I'm with
they
you.
had it's not like they didn't have a chance. I'm not saying it was impossible that they couldn't have scored a touchdown.
I'd have been like,
it's that measuring the risk did not make it worth it.
I agree.
This is where I'll actually agree, and that's why it's weird that Ken's pussyfooting around it.
Because I go around it all the time, and I get so much flack from everybody because I'm just negative about Harbaugh.
Yes, that's
because sometimes you just are.
Well, he doesn't know how to manage a game. I don't know how many times we want to talk about clock, score, situation, and analytics and all of that stuff. He doesn't know how to do a game. He hadn't done anything. If the Super Bowl was 2 minutes longer, you don't even win that game because he doesn't know how to manage that game and how to tell his people just to run the ball.
All right.
You're doing the most right now, Casey.
It's been a decade.
I gave him an inch.
I
gave him an inch. He took a mile.
No,
should have seen it coming.
I was trying to take the high road here because it was all explained in the post-game analysis of, I did look, if it wasn't explained, I would have jumped all over him and I was going to continue that, but it was explained away. I agree with you. There wasn't enough time. And as soon as the 4th down was there, it should have been a situation where the field goal unit just ran onto the field and let's kick the field goal and let's go up 10 points and everybody's feeling good about it in the half. Instead, you play around, you do whatever you do because analytics and clock management are not your forte.
You're just saying things.
You're
taking away from the conversation. No, Ken, stop.
This
stop.
It. But
you're lumping everything in together.
Glenn, when are you going to wake up and realize that this head coach is not going to get it done? Because we run into these situations.
Stop.
Whether you agree with me or disagree with me.
I'm going to have to pause you in a second. Stop.
Why?
Because you're going to all you're doing is your thing. You're just doing your shtick now. You're not actually talking about the football game at some point.
It's 2 out of 3 games now.
That you want to put entirely on the head coach instead of the 8 guys that dropped the football. You're just saying nonsense.
No, I tried to do that, Glenn. You wouldn't let me.
I would like to move on.
We are going to move on. I'm going to let Andrew hang on. I'm going to let Andrew Stecca have his say. I'm going to let Will skull drag them. Let Andrew Stecca have his final word about the Ravens because we lost. Ken took us way off the reservation as I should have expected. I go to Ken. What'd you think about the decision late in the half? And he's like, now tell me about the Super Bowl 12 years ago. Now let's get into that.
That's why I was ready to move on because I said,
I know.
What are we doing here? We're talking about something years ago. I don't want
I was going to give the head coach a pass.
Stop, Stecca. You get the final word on the Ravens
please
today.
Help us.
I'll try to bring it back a little bit to what you were talking about earlier with Femi. You're trying to put a certain amount of this on the defense making plays, but haven't you been talking all year about that pendulum swinging a little bit? Like to needing to be more on the offensive end of things than the defensive end of things. Like
Yeah.
the offense simply didn't execute today.
They
Like that's the problem.
sucked. They sucked, Andrew.
And that didn't have anything to do with the play calling. It didn't have much to do with the quarterback. I know the interception was bad, but that quarterback was slinging it today. He was running the ball effectively. I mean, they ran the hell out of the ball today too, really effectively. The offense was there. They just fucked up on a few different plays, like, to be frank. And that's it. And when you do that in Pittsburgh, you're gonna lose. When you do, I don't care how bad Pittsburgh is. Like Pittsburgh is bad, by the way. Like that is not a good football
team. Can I add
team.
to Andrew's point here?
Horrible.
Because too many people were talking about the rivalry, and it irritated me. It really irritated me about this rivalry. You just never know with this rivalry. I want us to put that to bed because this rivalry is dead. Okay, it's not what it used to be. It is. I don't want to say dead.
I fully disagree with you, Rita.
No. Okay, I don't want to say it's dead, but what I would like to say is it's on life support. That's what I want to say. I want to say that it's on life support because listen, Andrew. The Bengals Ravens is what the Steelers Ravens used to be. And someone mentioned there's too much respect in this rivalry, and it's not the same. It's just not the same. The Ravens losing this game had nothing to do with the Steelers, okay? It had everything to do with the Ravens, not anything to do with this rivalry. Nothing.
But what is the reason for that? What is the reason for that? Do they go up there and have some magical potion that they spray on everyone? And when they play Renegade,
I feel like I'm talking about this rivalry is magical potion. It is not what it used to be. It's not. Let's be real here.
The whole reason that this is still a rivalry is because the Ravens can go up there and still lay a turd on the field like they did today.
Okay, but that's any division opponent. What difference is that from when they played Cleveland last year? Or what difference is that when they played the Bengals last year? It's no different. It's no different. It's not. This is not a good football team. The Steelers are a good football team.
Today was just a lot of bad football. I'll agree with that. There was a lot of it.
This rivalry is not what it was 10 years ago. You know it, Andrew. You know it, Glenn. You know it, KZ. And Steve, you know it too. Carson, you probably know it as well.
The only reason I say that it's still a rivalry
Steve feels like he's catching strays.
I still give a damn.
Maryland.
I still give a damn as much as they lost today. If I didn't care as much about this loss, it wouldn't be a rivalry. I give a damn that they lost today, and I knew it was going to happen.
It matters about the division. I do not care about this rivalry the same way that I did 10 years ago. I don't.
Bottom line, that offensive pendulum. That's the point I was originally trying to make. The offensive pendulum has swung, and they just simply didn't execute today.
I completely agree.
Like that's the bottom line. If the offense isn't going to execute and make the plays that it needs to make, dropping passes and penalties and all the dumb stuff that happened, and including miscommunications between the coach and the center. Like those are the kinds of plays that have to be made. If they're not going to execute, they're not going to win games. And they didn't do it a few weeks ago against the Colts at home, and they didn't do it today in Pittsburgh. And that's your two losses right there.
All right, let's shift. It is the Project Game Day postgame show. It's brought to you by AJ Michaels, HelpMyGamblingProblem.org, and Superbook Sports, where hopefully your gambling weekend was better than the Baltimore sports weekend was. And if you're still, say, a believer in the Baltimore Orioles, well, you could still go get a bet in right now and try to salvage something on the Orioles at superbook.com or with the Superbook app. Use the code GlennClark23 when you sign up. Get a same-day first bet match up to $250, win or lose. Steve Johnson, did the Orioles season end tonight?
I mean, obviously that's a no. But it's going to be.
But you know what I'm really asking.
I know what you're asking, but it's not. I mean, look, they've prided themselves this year on being able to come back from situations like this. I mean, it's not the exact situation, but it's a way bigger situation. But they showed us all year that when they're they have a rough stretch, they come back. Now, can they win 3 in a row against a tough team, especially with how they're hitting? And who knows? But I think that, they showed a lot today, I think, in terms of how they ended the game. Not it's a tale of two days in a way. It's like yesterday they pitched pretty well. They pitched out some big jams and they didn't get any hits in some big situations. I mean, leadoff runner, three 7th inning, 8th inning, 9th inning, all, starting the inning off with a leadoff runner on, and they couldn't get anybody in. And then today they score 8 runs and they give up 11. it is what it is. That's baseball in a sense, but at the same time, they get a day off, they get to reset, change of scenery in a way. I know that the crowd was in it all the way through, but the back's against the wall in a way, but they got to get after it and show us what they've done all year, which is not being swept.
Okay.
I want to ask Glenn, Steve. I know Andrew left, but I'm sure he'll be back. I'm just curious to know you guys' opinion about this. When everything came out in terms of the lineup yesterday, in terms of how they went about the flow of the game yesterday, in terms of taking Bradish out, in terms of pinch hitting, how has your opinion been thus far? For me, I'm going to speak for me. I did not love game one. I do not like the lineup for game one. I did not like taking out Westberg for Adam Frazier in the fourth inning. I understand that Bradish struggled a little bit, but I was still very hesitant on taking him out early in the game. And I feel like
the big one, Rita, today is putting in Brian Baker. That's the one that everybody is all over, is putting Brian Baker in.
That's another thing too. So I understand that Grayson has played better since he's come back. I do understand that. But the last time that he played against the Rangers, he got tatted up a little bit good the last time. So my concern was putting him at number 2. So I'm just curious to know you guys' opinions about the decisions that Brandon Hyde has made in these first 2 games. Steve.
Me? Well, I would have liked to see Bradish go a little bit longer. He was near the end of his pitch count though, so there wouldn't have been too much left. And I get it. I think he got taken out for lefty, I believe.
Cologne, yeah.
Cologne.
And I think they did that 3 times in the game.
And Carter had been 0 for against lefties, and I actually could come up with okay, I can buy that from yesterday.
Yeah, I honestly, I was texting my dad during the game, and I was like, why are they taking him out? I mean, he gave up some runs. He had a rough inning.
That's how I felt. Yeah.
But at the same time, he was close to his pitch count. He had 9 Ks though. I'm like, is this the time? Should they let him go another one? He would have maybe been good for the start of the next inning, possibly, depending on how he finished up. So it's not like he would have been, a 2-3 inning extra, guy. So I don't necessarily fault that too much. It's just like the guys who came in, they ended up not giving up a lot of damage. I think the lefties that actually came in throughout the game, but they never got the lefty out that they got brought in to get out, which just led to more guys on base and the situations just kind of possibly snowballing, but they end up getting out of it. There's certain situations where they've been making some, pinch hits and getting some guys in the game a little earlier than normal, but at the same time, that's the things that they've been doing all year. They've been doing that, putting guys in different positions, switching the lineup around, and at the, it's like you can sit here and say, why'd they do that? And it's all just because it didn't work out. And if it did work out and Frazier comes in and hits a homer or gets a big hit, we're totally talking about different things. And obviously we could say that about any game in history, but I just think that they got here doing those things. It's tough to say, don't do those things now and then end up in a different situation.
Okay. I think that a lot of yesterday was defensible. I really do. And I agree that a lot of yesterday.
I do not love Hyde. A lot of decision making.
And you and I separate there. I like Brandon Hyde, and I think he's pushed most of the right buttons.
I didn't like him. I said I've been.
No. I mean, I think he's even the decision making. I think he's mostly pressed the right buttons. But today, I thought was indefensible. Today in a 5-2 game, turning to Brian Baker, who you like so much that you didn't even want him on the roster. I can't get over that. And I know that Brandon Hyde, one of his things has been, if a guy's going to be on the roster, they're going to play. Nobody is going to be on my roster that's just there to waste away. That's one of the things we gotten to know with Brandon Hyde. And, for the most part, I think it's worked out really well, frankly. But going to Brian
Do you
Baker.
think that it's worked out very well because of him or because of the roster in which that he has? I'm being honest.
I think for the most, I think it's a little bit of both, Rita.
Okay.
I do. I think
All
that
right.
he has had the pulse of this team for the most part. And I think he has pushed the right buttons over and over and over again. But I think going to Brian Baker was utter insanity. Like, I can't fathom with just about everyone available and knowing that you're on the brink of must win, that you would turn to the guy that you didn't even want to have on your roster down the stretch of the season to try to save you in that moment. I can't fathom that thought process.
So
KZ was funny.
No, because it's one of those things where I agree with you, Rita, with the fact that I question the moves in game one as he was doing them. But then the other half of my brain kicked in and said, I've been questioning these moves all year.
Well, I've always done that. All year.
But they won 101 games with me questioning that. And I know playoff baseball is different. And I do. But it seemingly worked out a lot this year. He's pushed a lot of right buttons.
But my question to you guys is it the talent or is it the manager? That is my question.
I agree with Glenn there. I think it's both. I think you have talented players and he uses 26 people as well as anybody. Do I like how quickly he pulls pitchers? No, I don't. Do I like the
as of right now, it's been the talent more than it's been the manager.
Do I get in the
playoffs? I'm asking a question.
Well, I mean, look, in the playoffs.
Well, the guys just haven't performed. I mean, that's basically what it comes down to.
They came in the best in the league in one-run games and hitting with runners in scoring position. They had plenty of opportunities in game one, and they didn't do it. I mean,
because you removed Westburg.
No.
Santander in the fourth inning, KZ.
But even you're down 3-2. You have runners on first and second, and nobody out, and one of your best hitters is up, and there's only one thing in the world he can't do, and he does it.
I agree.
And he's come through so many times. How many times this year has O'Hearn, when there's been a runner on and he's come up and gotten that hit, he was almost magical with it. Frazier, look, I have love-hate with Frazier because he's been so hot and cold, but there's no denying that guy's gotten some of the biggest hits this year on this team. So there were things that drove me crazy, but I thought it was just performance of the players in game one. The Baker thing, look, I don't know anybody in Baltimore or anybody that thought that this was a good idea the moment it happened.
Brandon Hyde did.
Well, and it was a tragic mistake. And I don't understand, and I'm sure there's a post-game comment. I'm sure he was asked about it. I don't know if Carson has that handy, but I don't understand why I don't understand why he was on the roster to begin with, but since he's on the roster, I don't understand going there at that juncture. 5-2 with this team is not, the game isn't over, but it is once you walk the bases loaded. And this is what Baker has done the entire year. So I just, that one's indefensible. I agree with you with today. It's indefensible. Game one, I didn't mind. I may have disagreed, but it's how he's managed all year and really how he managed down the stretch as well in some of those big games until they won the division. If you think back to the Tampa series and some of the games before they clinched, he was very quick with his hook and he was managing it every game, seemingly like game 7 to me, and making those moves, and they've worked out. It's tough to criticize 101 during the year, and he managed the same way in game one. Today,
I was able to do it all year.
I know, but
I was the number one hater.
This one's the funny one to me, Rita, because like I the biggest thing I would say is I think if anything, it's more on Brandon Hyde. To say that this has been about the players, I think this is a top heavy talented roster, but I think from 1 to 26, it was the worst of all of the playoff rosters. And everybody who asked me what I thought the Orioles were going to do in the postseason, I said, I don't know how they won 101 games. They're not particularly good at something. There's not one thing that they're very good at. They were very good at the back end of their bullpen until they lost Felix Bautista. They're not good at any particular thing, and yet they won 101 games, which is bonkers. It's badass. So we actually, this is as different as you and I go. We couldn't disagree more about any subject in this subject. I think somehow Brandon Hyde managed to get 8 to 10 more wins out of this team than could have ever reasonably been expected by the talent.
Yeah, we don't agree with that.
I love Adley Rutschman. I love Gunnar Henderson. But
I don't agree with that.
Tell me about who are all the hitters? Tell me who the 300 hitter was on this team.
That's been the consensus of this whole team for the entire season, which obviously is not Brandon Hyde's fault, right? He doesn't go out there and he doesn't hit. And so for that, I do not put that on him, because that is up to the players to do their jobs. They did somehow, despite the fact they weren't very good. I'm specifically talking about the fact that I don't like the decisions that he's made, and he hasn't done anything to change my mind in this postseason. He's done nothing for me to be like, oh, I thought that was a good decision. Not in either game.
But you keep bringing up. Let me bring up the Frazier Westberg thing, because I'm so confused as to what we thought the answer was going to be. Either way. Westberg didn't hit for shit down the stretch this season,
and you thought Adam Frazier was going to
no, but that's what I'm saying. Why does
you said no? So that's all.
Whoa. But you're pretending like there's definitely going to be a different result if Jordan Westberg stays in the game.
You said no, so there's no but behind that. There's no but behind that.
No, I'm saying that it's a net zero. It's a zero sum. I assuming that there's going to be a different result if Jordan Westberg stays in the game. I don't know what that's based off of. He didn't hit for shit at the end of the season. I get it.
Put him in there to begin with, then.
Because no one did. That's the problem. No one has hit for shit down the stretch. They've all crapped the bed offensively in the last month of the season. You
don't make that change in the fourth inning, in my opinion, flat out.
Okay. I mean, I hear you. I just don't know why anything would have been different. Steve, let me come back to you.
It's been the same all year, though.
I agree.
And it seems to, as much as one or the other hasn't hit, or they've gotten it done. Someone has gotten it done, and Frazier's been a guy who's come in and pitch hit in situations and gotten a hit, or whatever it's the defense. I'm not sure why they're making the moves the way they are in some situations. And I've had conversations with it. I've talked to people. I'm like, why all the moving around? Why all the it just feels like every game, and it's just a little bit different than I wasn't out of the game that long ago, but it's just changed so much in terms of I have no idea. I haven't seen it happen as much as it's happened now. It's with pitchers. It's with the pinch hit stuff. It's with everything, and there has to be a reason for it. And I'd love for someone to tell me at some point.
God, I'm just gonna cut in real quick.
I agree with Steve. I'm sorry. Who's
Carson?
Well, I was gonna say just real quick. I know we don't really talk about, in football, it's coaching tree is a big thing, and this guy came from this staff and whatever. Brandon Hyde was the bench coach 2016 when the Cubs won the World Series. Who was the manager of that team? Joe Madden. Joe Madden is arguably the king of pushing all these different buttons and all these different lineups and stuff. Joe Madden, I just looked it up, is the guy who in 2011, if you guys remember, on the last day of the season, when the Rays needed to beat the Yankees, and then we ended up beating the Red Sox, that's how the Rays got in. When the Rays needed a solo home run in the bottom of the ninth inning, who did he pinch hit? Dan Johnson, who hit 116 that year. So that's where Brandon Hyde learned this stuff from, and the Cubs won a World Series doing it.
Sure, but that doesn't guarantee that. Right, it doesn't.
To be said for all that it's not like this random thing that Brandon Hyde just woke up and said, you know what, I'm going to push all these different buttons. He learned that, and he saw it work in Chicago, and he's trying to do it here.
For the most part, it's worked this season.
I'm not saying the Baker thing.
And that's what I got to come back to.
I scratched my head when he.
Right. I got to come back to that one, Steve, because I can sit here and defend everything else to the death based on the success that they've had this season. But for the life of me, I cannot fathom when and I get it, the season didn't end the night, but you know where we're at when the season is essentially hanging in the balance. I maybe what he's thinking is, let me try to steal an inning here. Let me try to see if maybe the Rangers are a little flat after they just scored 5 innings and 5 runs in the last inning. I cannot defend at all the thought of putting Brian Baker in a game when you're down 3 in the third inning and have to keep it close.
Did the analytics tell him to do that?
I have no idea. I was thinking the same thing. I just thought it was a little confusing. Just for a guy where that Baker, the situation that Baker was in near the end of the year, going into this offseason, into this playoffs, I was thinking that's an odd choice to have him in there, and to not see Fuji in there. Just different situations. That was I'm thinking second inning, third inning, you need a long guy to go in there. And I know that Flaherty hadn't pitched well. He hadn't pitched as well. He hadn't had a lot of experience coming in from the bullpen. But I just thought you need a starter right now. You need a starter to go in and give you 4 innings, hopefully 5 innings. And I'm not sure what Baker's stats were against Texas this year. I didn't look that up. Maybe that had something to do with it. If it was a matchup thing, I'm not sure, but also no one could expect him to go in there and walk 3 guys. I'm sure that hadn't happened much this season either, where you go in and just walk 3 straight. So it's an unfortunate situation. It's probably something where, 2 years ago or whenever they made the rule change, he probably goes in there for a batter and sees the way he's pitching, and you get him right out of there. But that's not how it works anymore. So that was surprising. I thought definitely they'd go in and see Flaherty, just say, hey, go as long as you can. He's the starter in the bullpen pretty much. And
well, he couldn't throw a strike either. Yeah, he couldn't. Exactly. He couldn't throw a strike either.
But that's the thing. That's what happens sometimes when you have starters in the bullpen. They're not fully used to it, and maybe the situation. Texas is just a good hitting team, and they, maybe they're just trying to be too fine, whatever it ends up being, and the situation just gets away from you a little bit. I mean, it does happen. It's it's just unfortunate it happened today.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I want to be clear that I am not. Yes, I am very critical of Brandon Hyde. I am not a huge fan of him. That's obvious. But I want to be clear that what I'm seeing with this series is the same issues that I thought about coming into this series, which is inconsistent hitting. That was always a concern for me, leaving runners in scoring position, although Aaron Hicks today did a pretty good job of starting the trend of trying to get some runs. But this is not necessarily a Brandon Hyde thing, because we hear people talking about, the inexperience, will catch up to you. And to me, it was not necessarily the inexperience of postseason. It was just the inexperience, period, right? That when they get good pitching, because I agree with you about Bradish, they weren't really able to kind of dig into that. And then the bats get cold, and then you score 8 tonight, and that's great. But yeah, you gave up a grand slam, and it put you in this situation. So I am not overly critical of Hyde. I do think that some of this is I have issues with him, but Glenn knows this. I've had issues with Hyde all season. I'm very consistent about that, but I'm also consistent about the fact that the Orioles don't know how to consistently make the plays that they need to make in order to go make a deep postseason run. And that's the concern that I have with this baseball team, in addition to the decisions that the manager makes.
So let me come back, and I want to go to Steve and to Andrew on this one, because I feel like it's almost a similar conversation to what we were having about the Ravens game earlier. It feels like almost when we jump to Brandon Hyde and try to get on him about the Baker thing or whatever, anything from yesterday, it becomes dismissive of the fact that Adley Rutschman hasn't hit at all in these 2 games, or dismissive of Grayson Rodriguez, who we thought coming out of the first inning had settled in and was ready to go and to be that guy, and then got his ass kicked in the second inning. And when we measure these things, we're measuring a lot of different things, because these were the 2 starters the last 2 days that you were counting on, right? And when I ask when the series is over, part of that is there's not a person in this city that feels comfortable going with Kramer and Gibson the next 2 days that you'll definitely be able to come away with 2 wins from that group. Doesn't mean it's impossible. But when we talk about these decisions, are we deflecting too much from the performance of some of the key players on this roster, versus did they have too much expectations for some of these guys who are playing in their first career playoff games? Steve, you go first.
I mean, I more think of it's these 2 games especially. I really don't think are on the manager. I mean, I would say the percentage is pretty high on the players compared to what the manager is doing. Yes, a move or two, sure, it could change the game a little bit. By that time, your star players aren't performing the way they need to at the end of the day. And obviously, the offense took a little bit, to get going, and they got going today, but it's like, too late. There's a lot of situations over the course of the last two games they could have really put, a few more runs on the board, and it didn't happen. Okay, that happens. And then the pitchers couldn't get the job done today to keep the game a little closer. It's like the players just aren't performing. And at a certain point in baseball, you get into a game where it seems like it possibly is getting away from you. You score 5 runs in the first 2 innings, and then all of a sudden, you're just trying to find someone that can get the job done for a few innings. And it just seemed like it wasn't happening. And you're trying to push the right buttons with hitters yesterday, and it didn't happen. So, I just also think of, they made some great plays in the field too. I mean, Santander's double play in the 8th inning.
Yeah,
the chopper, the guy comes in on it, and that could easily, you see it all the time, bounce off the heel of the glove, goes over his head, and score a run. Second and third, and no outs. It's a totally different ball game. The guy makes a great play. He's made great plays. He actually, I think, has been one of the biggest issues with the offense, is that guy over there has just been a vacuum cleaner. He's been making every single play and really killing rallies. And I think that's been a huge issue. And obviously the players just aren't performing. They're not playing together right now. The pitching and then the offense is just not, they're not playing the same level of, at the same time. That's basically what it ends up being today.
Andrew, you have not chimed in whatsoever, probably because you muted yourself.
Come on, Andrew, we need you.
What do you need? I mean, this to me, this is very much down to the players. Now, I can question the Brian Baker thing all I want, and it's definitely confusing. I can't fathom Brian Baker would be the guy for a spot like that, with like Steve was alluding to, like the way that he kind of finished the season and really kind of wasn't even a part of any of these big games as they were chasing a division, over guys like, and I know he struggled, but like over guys like Fujinami, even over guys like Flaherty, who you brought in at the deadline. Like these were your 2 big acquisitions. And I get that they didn't really ball out down the stretch, but these were the guys that were supposed to be helping in these spots. And you brought in Brian Baker in that spot. I can definitely question that. But aside from that move, I mean, this is a matter, like you wanted to compare it to the Ravens, Glenn. Like, this is a matter of execution. The players are not executing on the field and getting the job done. It's extremely reminiscent in some ways of what happened in 2014 against the Royals in the ALCS, unfortunately, where the bats just kind of go cold. And I know they scored a ton of runs tonight in what should have been enough, but it wasn't. And it comes down to this team not really quite being ready to make this leap. Texas was always going to be a really tough matchup for them. I really was way more comfortable with the idea of them playing one of the 2 division teams, either the Rays or the Blue Jays, when they got to this spot, just for the familiarity of it. I thought that playing Texas, a team that you have not seen since the early part of the season, and a team that I know they kind of fell on their face down the stretch and fumbled the bag with the AL West, but that's still a really good team. And we're kind of seeing how good,
and a particularly potent lineup. And there's not an empty spot. And what, I hate this, man. I hate, because I'll bring up Adley, who did finally get a hit, but God, the Cedric Mullins thing is it's the most heartbreaking thing, because Cedric, like, you hate to come down on Cedric Mullins, because my God, you're not here without Cedric Mullins.
I know Santander went deep yesterday too, but he's 0 for 5 today. Like There's a lot of names you can throw out of guys that just, this is a short series. This is what the playoffs is. This is what, like, we all know, you play 162 to get to this point, and you've got to execute. And if you don't execute, you can quickly fall on your face. And this is a young team that it's gotten to this point, and it sucks. And it when you pair it with what happened in Pittsburgh today, it really sucks for Baltimore sports in general. But this was always kind of, I hate to say it, but this was always kind of in the offing. This was on the table to happen this way, just from a matchup standpoint, and the way that they kind of, I'm not going to say they limped to the finish line, but the bats were not cooking come late September and heading into October. They just were not. The bullpen was obviously shot, and with the injury issues and everything else. I mean, I don't, this is like kind of an offshoot of this, but when I saw the John Means news, when they set the
Yeah.
roster, I was like,
Yeah.
oh boy, because that just kind of it moves another rung of the pitching peg kind of down the ladder, and then you've got to go like the whole thing. When I saw Brian Baker even made the roster, I was like, wow, that's and I was surprised Jack Flaherty was on this roster. I really thought there were going to be some other names, and it's just, I don't know. I got really uncomfortable coming into these two games, and it's kind of been proven out that way, unfortunately.
Steve, let me ask, are we at a point? I have said all along that come hell or high water, no matter how bad it was with Mullins after he returned, he had to be out there because what he offered range-wise in center field, you just can't replicate that, right? Like you lose entirely too much. But has it gotten to a point, because it has started to look almost non-competitive a little bit in some of these at-bats? Are we at a point going into game 3 where they have to think about whether they can even put Mullins in the lineup?
I don't think so. I think you talk about kind of experience, and I know that the playoffs is not the Orioles have not been in the playoffs for a good bit. But at the same time, he's one of those leaders on the field. He's one of those guys that a lot of those players have kind of looked up to, and kind of a way to how to play the game in those situations, and to have him in the lineup, I think, goes a long way. I know he hasn't hit very well, and some of his at bats haven't been very good, but I just think that he still came up with some big hits down the stretch as well. But this whole offense, I mean, you could say that about anybody. Truly, I mean, there's a lot of guys in this lineup that didn't hit well down the stretch, and we're not talking about taking them out. So at the same time, it's just that they have to step up as a whole. They've done it all season, and they've gone through cold stretches and they come out of it. It's just the situation that they're in it's a 5-game series, and they could be 3 and out if they don't put it together on Tuesday. So they've just kind of,
all the time,
like I said, it's the I was not happy about the Rangers matchup, and I know you play the best to beat the best and all that, and I get that, but I just think that the way the Texas offense can score against the offense that we've been putting up there the last couple of weeks is just, I didn't think it was a good combination.
I have not seen anything yet as far as an answer from Brandon Hyde about Brian Baker. I know he just started meeting with the media a couple minutes ago. I'll keep monitoring that. I'm going to because as of the moment, we don't know. I'll let everybody go around and get a word in on it. Game 3 on Tuesday night, it's Kramer or it's Gibson with your season on the line. In fairness, if you win, you're going to have to throw the other one in game 4, but you got to get there first, right? Like you can't throw the other one until you win the first one. So who you throwing in game 3?
Kramer.
Kramer?
Yeah, I go with Kramer.
Okay. Andrew?
This is like red pill, blue pill, and they're both killing me. I mean, I'm probably throwing Kramer. I think he's got the better stuff, but I'm not.
Yeah, you're not. Great about I get it. I get it. I understand.
We all get it, Andrew.
KZ.
I'm going Gibson. I just.
You just want to be a contrarian.
No, I don't.
Let him talk.
I just want the guy that has the experience, and I that's done it before. He has the ability to go 5 innings and limit an offense, and he's a little bit. I guess he's a little bit different than Bradish and Rodriguez. Give him a different look or something. I agree with Andrew. Blue pill, red pill. There's no wrong answer. I think they've both had their moments. I just, at this point, all I've heard everybody talk about for the last couple of minutes is how experience is important, and they don't have it, and Kramer doesn't have it, and Gibson does, and that's it for me. I mean, Kramer would, I mean, you need one of them to go game 4 either way. So,
I want to add too, though, if John Means was able to go, and if it was John Means in game 3,
John Means would have played tonight. I don't care what nobody said.
No, I think Means would have started game 3.
Yeah, I think they would have wanted Grayson. Okay. I think they would have wanted Grayson at home. I think they would have.
That's where me and Hyde would have not been on the same page.
I mean, you can make an argument.
Game 2. I'm
you
not.
can make an argument for that regardless. My point was going to be, if it was John Means going in game 3, I still wouldn't be all that confident because the vibes are just not there offensively.
Right, the morale is a little
bullpen wise. Like
I get it.
if we had John Means going to game 3 and had still lost the first 2 at home, I'm not feeling much more confident that I am with Kramer or Gibson on the mound, to be perfectly honest with you.
To go with KZ's point, right? Gibson has played well in the last couple of starts.
Well, that's and Rita, Rita, you know I hate agreeing with KZ, but and
we all do.
We all
KZ
do.
is extra.
And we also
Always extra.
know that if it's not Gibson, it'll somehow be Harbaugh's fault. Like I know that.
and you and Steve also both know that a month ago I didn't even want Kyle Gibson in the playoff rotation.
You sure didn't.
Yeah.
He pitched to a 2.45 ERA in September, and to the point about the experience, I think right now you need somebody that's going to go out and be as tranquilo as you possibly can have in this situation. And this is a vibes sort of thing for me.
He does give off more Joe Saunders vibes than anyone right now.
That's
maybe that's part of it.
Whereas
someone to go down to Texas and get in a must-win game.
Dean Kramer is professionally angry, and that's one of the things that I like about Dean Kramer, right? Like he operates as a human out of anger. Like that's where he is he's gonna be angry. But I need tranquillo as much as possible in this moment. And I feel like it is more likely for me to find that tranquillo in Kyle Gibson right now than it is in Dean Kramer. Now, I get it. You would want tranquillo again in game 4, and you wouldn't get that if Dean Kramer pitches. But I think once you have the vibes again, once you have changed the momentum a little bit, then maybe you can get away with the psychopath. But I'm expecting it to be Kramer just because he had the better season and feels like he's earned it. I think I would turn to Kyle Gibson as well in this moment, needing the veteran. Rita, I know you've
convinced me. I'm flipping from red pill to blue pill.
But I'd have one in the pen.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that's the point.
And
too,
by the
right?
way, why weren't they in the pen today? Like, why wasn't Flaherty?
Everybody say Rita's got to leave. Rita's got to go. We've gone nearly. Rita's got to duck out.
5 minutes.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I only saw the part that said you got to go. That's the only part of the text
I gotta go
that
about 5 minutes. So.
All right. You tell us when you're ready to go. Go ahead, Steve. I'm sorry.
I just say you put one in the pen, and if they get off to a bad start, whoever it ends up being, you just go the rest of the way. You can bring the other one back in game 4. You can probably bring Grayson back somewhat early. I know, you could call today a bullpen at some point, but he could probably come back a little earlier with an off day and, game 3 going on. Maybe he ends up being able to give you 3 or 4 in game 4 if you get through game 3. And then you have Bradish for game 5, hopefully, if that's, needed. But, it's all hands on deck at this point. So it's, if it starts, 1 run in the first, you gone, make a move. The whole bullpen will be fresh because you have that off day. And if you go 1 inning the rest of the way for everybody, it is what it is.
So Steve,
Everybody
I just want to be clear. You're comfortable. You would be okay with bringing Grayson back for game 4. And I asked this because, right, Fox, is that who did today's game?
Yes,
okay,
correct.
So they showed like a graphic of when he played his last game against the Rangers. And I understand this was prior to him going down to AAA to kind of, get himself back together. But you would be comfortable with him starting game 4, knowing the outing that he had.
I have no doubt. I mean,
is that just to kind of build his confidence?
You don't really have a choice. I mean, that's at that point. You have somebody that can give you innings, where and guys in the bullpen. You don't want to throw a bullpen game and then have no one for game 5.
That's true.
So I don't even know if it would be a possibility if they would allow him. I mean, he's up there in innings in terms of career highs and everything. So I'm not sure where that would be, but I mean, it would have to be an option. And, I don't really put a lot of stock into what Grayson did before he got sent down. Really, he's been a different pitcher since. It really kind of limited a lot of things that he struggled with early. And I just maybe think a little bit of maybe adrenaline got a hold of him today. in terms of he just couldn't locate the ball as well as he normally does. And I think also, not to make excuses, but that umpire was pretty tight early on.
The blown
and
call in the first inning was
he
really
didn't get a
bad.
couple
That's valid.
calls, and he had to make a few pitches, and now all of a sudden he's thrown way more pitches early, and it just got away from him. And I would have, as a pitcher, you can't think about the last outing, and you're not thinking about this team owns me. He hasn't faced them that much. They've gotten him a couple times, and it's mainly due to his walks. If he limits his walks, he's good. And a new day is a possibility for him to go out there and do what he's done the last couple months.
Are you available on Tuesday? Wednesday?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it might work. I might be able to throw below hitting speed, so it might actually might be good. Not eligible though. So.
That's a real shame. That's a real shame, as they could use the help.
All right, guys, I gotta go. So
all right, Rita, love you.
I want to thank you, Steve, for joining us. I really appreciate you. KZ, I love you. Even though you are the contrarian of the group, you're still my favorite person. Andrew, yes, thank you. And Glenn, of course, I love you. So
love you, friend. We'll see you next.
Hopefully we can have a different conversation. The one thing I can say before we go is that the Orioles have not been swept in 86 games or something, 86 series.
6 series, yeah.
All right, cool. So hopefully there's some.
I really hope it's not.
God, wouldn't that suck? Wouldn't that suck?
Because
they're gonna to existence, guys.
They're gonna still, if it happens, they're gonna still continue the whole swept thing, and they're gonna continue it all next year in the regular season. They're gonna be like, oh well, I haven't been
to
swept.
Me, it doesn't count anymore. But you're right.
Exactly. But that's what they're gonna do, and everyone's gonna anytime that stat gets brought up, if they're going to be like, well, it didn't matter because they got swept in the play. It's just the same thing with the preseason win streak and all that stuff with the Ravens. It's just, I just hope it doesn't happen.
I agree. I'm just going to speak good juju into the universe and that they don't get swept, and that game 3 will be the Orioles game, and we will keep this thing going.
All right, friend.
All right, guys.
We'll talk to you next Sunday.
Yes, sir.
Bye, Rita.
That's our girl, the NFL chick, Reeta Hubbard. We, for the most part, is there anything, Steve, that you had on your list that we haven't covered that you thought was worthy of conversation after these first couple of games?
I mean, I think we've kind of talked about everything. It's my biggest thing was, I was at the game yesterday and it was just awesome. I mean, it was a loss, but it felt, we were in it the whole time. The crowd was awesome. I mean, we were on our feet for the last 3 innings pretty much, and no one really sat down. The crowd was in it the whole way. It was fun. So it's just unfortunate just because this team has, obviously it just hasn't worked out. The games just haven't went their way, and that's okay. And it's not over, but it's unfortunate because this city was ready, and it was a pretty cool experience even in a loss. I know everyone was in it, and it was just I just hope they get another chance to bring it back for game 5, because I know it would just be awesome.
It's been a vicious gut punch, but it's not over. It's not over, and they've done some surprising things all season long. Hey, the line is out for Ravens-Titans Sunday morning. Ravens -4 despite losing today. Ravens -4 in London against the Titans. Go right now to superbook.com. Download the Superbook app. Use the code GlennClark23. And when you do, you will get a same-day first bet match up to $250. Win or lose. Again, GlennClark23 at superbook.com or the Superbook app. Steve Johnson, thank you for hanging out with us, brother. Really appreciate it. Hopefully there'll be a long playoff run still to come, and we'll have more opportunities to chat. But appreciate you hanging out with us tonight.
Appreciate it.
KZ, love you. Stecca, love you. Appreciate you guys. We will be back following Ravens-Titans next Sunday morning. For the next Project Game Day, of course, Glenn Clark Radio tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Thanks to AJ Michaels. Thanks to HelpMyGamblingProblem.org and Superbook. This has been PressBox's